I need you to answer this question for me. Okay. So my
Okay.
friend is American with an
Uh-huh.
African parent, one African parent, one
Okay.
American parent, but born and
Uh-huh.
raised all his life in America.
Okay.
And my friend does not understand why during the World Cup I was supporting Morocco and not France because France was full of black players, right? So in my life, I'm Pan African and I interpret Pan Africanism to mean I support all of Africa, but I also support
Absolutely.
all of black people in the diaspora, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it seemed like supporting Morocco, which sometimes, you know how some of our Arab neighbors treat some sub-Saharan, I don't use that term, but let's use it for the sake of argument, treat
Yeah.
sub-Saharan Africans sometimes. Lots of
Yeah.
racism, lots of discrimination,
Mm-hmm.
not good.
Mm-hmm.
And why wouldn't I support the black players on the French team, as an example, even if I'm not a big supporter of the French team because of all their shenanigans in Africa in the past until this day. So no matter what I say, it's not going to be good enough, right? So I want you, okay, a neutral party to explain, because I try to explain, I'm like, in 1990, it was Cameroon. Every African supported Cameroon because they were
Supported
doing something at the
Cameroon.
World Cup, right?
Absolutely.
And in that was 94 it was Nigeria, in 98 it was Nigeria, in 2002 it was Senegal, in 2006 it was Ghana, in
Ghana.
2010 it was Ghana again, in 2014 it was nobody did well, in 2018 in Russia, did
It
any
was us
African team do
partially.
well? Yeah, Nigeria
Um,
wasn't good, but we made
at
the
least we won
knockout
one
round, but we
game.
were terrible. Yeah, we won one game. And then in 2022, it was Morocco. They were going all the way to the
Yeah.
semis, right? I mean, they were doing
Absolutely.
something no one had ever done before, right? And it's funny because everywhere I go, if I have my Yakini jersey on, if I have my Okocha jersey on, Africans of all shades come to me and want to talk to me about it. And when it comes to football, our North African brothers don't discriminate between North and East and South and West. It's the only thing that really unites Africans. So
Absolutely.
am I being naive about this? Or do you agree with this?
Why would you support France to start with? Because they have black players? I don't understand.
Because they are black players. We're supporting them.
Oh,
So his sense is these players were born in France. Not all of them, but let's go with it. Most of them were born
yeah.
in France. Some were not. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the only country they legitimately know. It's kind of like black Americans playing basketball for America. I think it's a little
Yeah.
different because these
Mm-hmm.
these France players have African parents. So it's a little different. We're
Yeah.
not yet
Yeah.
at that place where they've been in France for 3 or 4 generations. Most of them are
Yeah.
first generation themselves or their parents were first generation.
Okay. So, to your friend, for this
Yeah.
purpose of this discussion, I'll say Mr. X, right?
Okay, let's go with Mr. X.
Akin is not the odd man out in this case, right? This is the way most of we Africans we feel about this, right? When we're playing the World Cup, see, when we're playing the Nations Cup, yes, there is that division. Yes, we can be fighting each other. But when we go to the World Cup, we have countries that are representing Africa. We have countries that will determine the number of berths we get in the future. If we succeed, the more seeds will most likely come to us. If we mess up, we won't get more seeds. We'll probably get less. So at the World Cup, I am rooting for every African nation. Every. France winning or losing has nothing to do with Africa. It doesn't benefit me in any way. It doesn't hurt me in any way. So why will I then support them? It doesn't. It doesn't in any way. So I will not, I can like the players and I can say, but if a French team is playing an African team, Even if it is North Africa, South Africa, East Africa, of course I'm supporting the African team. Why would I support the French team? No way will I do that. You know?
Okay.
So it's understandable. Yeah. These guys are French. Yeah. The fact that they have decided to play for France, Aki and I have a problem with that to start with, but we're not even going to go into that. But the fact that you've decided to play for France, right? That means you're French. If you win, it's the glory of France. It's not the glory of Africa, right? When they won the World Cup, Pogba is from is it Senegal or Mali? Who else?
Mali.
Mbappe is from Cameroon. Did you think any glory came to Cameroon or Mali? Yep. Yeah. Did you think any glory came to those countries because they won? No, none whatsoever. Yeah. So it's not unusual. What Akin said is not unusual. It is what it is. Akin.
Okay. Let me twist the hypothetical a little bit, right? So, Yinka, what about the real issue here? You know, my friend is a very conscious person, you know, and he understands when something happens to Black people in one part of the world, it affects all of us around the world. So in that way, he's also Pan-African, if that makes sense. So what about the fact that these North African countries, you know, sometimes act as agents of Europe in stopping, again, I hate the term sub-Saharan, but in stopping sub-Saharan African from crossing through the Sahara Desert, through their countries, into the Spains and Frances and Italies of the world. And sometimes they just plain do ugly things to, again, quote unquote, Black Africa. And then what about the Sudan versus South Sudan, Sudan versus other regions in Sudan that are not all the way Arab? And all those things that are happening in the last 20, 25 years. And, you know, those are real as well. So how do you, how do you feel being Nigerian and rooting for those countries?
How can we say this, right?
Yeah.
I don't like bringing sports into politics and vice versa.
Or politics into sports. Yep.
Yeah. It's not something I love to do, right? So when it comes to sports, let's keep it within that silo of sports, right?
Okay.
We are Africans when it comes to sports. I support the Moroccans, I support the Tunisians, and I don't want to go into, because if we open that kind of worms from a political standpoint, you're going down a rabbit's hole at this point. Only God knows where we will end. We might not even finish this podcast in the next 1 hour, right? One other thing I would love your friend to notice is this. Even the French guys that have picked our boys, or the African boys, it's when they win, they remember they are French. When they mess up, they remember that they are Cameroonians, they are Malians,
Algerian,
they are Kenyans, or Algerians, or, you know, whatever, as the case may be. Okay? Saka, Rashford, you saw what happened to them. You see what happens to them on the daily. So why would I be rooting for those kind of people that are selective in their support of my people, quote and unquote? I won't do that.
Yeah.
You know? It's not it.
Not to make this even more complicated. And I'm sorry, I just had to do this. So my apologies. But I think we're gonna cut this up, and so Nigeria, for example, a lot of people who are not Nigerian don't know this. Nigeria has a pretty sizable Lebanese community, right?
Absolutely.
And they've come in two waves. You know, they came in the 80s when you had the Lebanese civil war. It was, pretty brutal. There's a lot of reasons why that happened that we're not going to get into it. And Nigeria was one of the places that a lot of Lebanese came into. And, they're well established. They're, in many cases, uber successful. Some of the really, really popular Lebanese origin Nigerian. They at this point, they consider themselves Nigerian, right? So
they even have Nigerian
and now
passports.
There's been they have Nigerian passport. They consider themselves Nigerians. And now there's been a second wave. Unfortunately, no one wants to see this as Lebanon continues to suffer from a lot of geopolitical issues. Now there's a second wave, and this time it's not just Nigeria. It's pretty much every West African capital. You go to Abidjan, there's a wave there. Accra, there's a wave there. So, and I say Lebanon on purpose because I know they're not African, right? They're not from Africa, but Africa is very welcoming. You know what I mean? Like I used to know this number. I can't remember how much. I think it's something like 6,000 foreign people coming to Lagos either every week or every month. I can't remember. We don't think about it. We don't talk about it. But there's a lot of people around Africa that find Lagos as a land of opportunity and come in all the time. We don't talk about that. We talk about Nigerians leaving Nigeria, but we don't talk about people coming into Nigeria. I say all that to say, immigrants going into North Africa from Southern Africa is not anything new. It happens all the time. The wave comes from the other way as well. I have a really good friend who is Egyptian, born and raised in Nigeria, family still in Nigeria. I have many, people like that as well.
Yeah.
So it's just, but I think for people who have not lived in Africa, it's not the part of Africa that you see in the news. It's not, people don't do in-depth stories about Africa outside of the typical, the gloom and doom and all that. So that may be the context that may be missing here. So just wanted to put that out there.
Fair enough. But hey, we're Africans when it comes to sports. We are Africans. I'll say it again. If you remove sports, we might not be Africans anymore, if you get what I mean. But
yeah.
Sporting context, nah. Anyway, let's
wrap up this segment by tell the people what Lagos was like during Morocco's run at the 2022 World Cup. Was there even a doubt who people were going to support?
Hell, there was no doubt at all. All the bars, all the bars, the viewing centers, everybody was rooting for Morocco. Yeah? Everybody was rooting for Morocco. Same thing with Ghana. When Luis Suarez did what he did to Ghana, I was pissed.
He did it to all of Africa.
He did it to
all of Africa.
I was pissed.
And then the crazy thing, if we're going by what people actually look like, meaning the color of people's skin, we know the history of North Africa and the Middle East. And how a lot of people who live there today were originally from what is now considered sub-Saharan Africa. And a lot of people that make it onto these national teams look like you and I. You know what I mean? They may no longer have our names. You know what I mean? They all have Arabic sounding names. And then I guess I keep saying we're wrapping it up, but I keep going. If you think about, Morocco is actually the least Arabic of the North African teams. You know what I mean? Like they're the least indigenous, if you think about it, because Arabic may be the most widely,
Egypt.
So because they're all the way to the west, right? All the way to the west, as far from the Middle East as you could get. And even if you think about language, it's probably the North African country where Arabic is the least spoken, if that makes sense, because there's still a heavy Berber population and Berber influence and all that. And Moroccan Arabic is not considered standard Arabic. It's not considered well-spoken Arabic, if that makes sense. Okay, we've done this thing to death. Thank you for indulging. Thank you for watching our video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click on the notifications button so you don't miss any of our content.
And please don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms.